Welcome to my presentation of my social enterprise project for selling Shanghai. My project is the Global Water Reclamation Initiative, and we're going to go through a few problems and history of the Shanghai region and propose a for-profit endeavor that works with nonprofits and has the ultimate goal of helping to clean up waterways across the Shanghai region as well as the world. So without further ado, we'll get into a little bit of history behind Shanghai itself, some of the problems that they're facing, and my proposed social enterprise project. A brief history of Shanghai is that, as you can see in the map on the right, Shanghai is a coastal city that has which has a rich history of agriculture and industry dating back to approximately 6000 BC. So their history is long and very well documented. During the early era of their history in the area, the bend of the Song River, which is there in the middle, had a very thriving fishing industry. And during the imperial rule of the Ming and Qing dynasties, the area began to experience and conform to a lot of outside global influence for trade and shipping because of its location along the coast with the many waterways and tertiary access points to many of those shipping routes. Industrialization began with the Treaty of Shimonoseki, which ended the First Sino-Japanese War. And with that, the Japanese began building the first factories in Shanghai and really bringing the Western influence into a feudal empire that had long been based on agriculture and fishing. Shanghai is a coastal city, once again located on the eastern shores of central China. It lies on the southeastern frontier of the Changjiang or the Yangtze Delta, and it contains many rivers, canals, drains, and lakes, and has a really dense access to shipping ports and access to routes to bring in goods to and from the rest of the world. Because of the strategic placement among the waterways of the East, Shanghai waterline became one of the most active commercial ports in the world. Expansion during the nationalist era, subsequent Japanese occupation, built the framework for modern Shanghai industry, and now governed by the Chinese Communist Party. The major industries include energy, textiles, chemicals, automotive, and metal manufacturing. And at this point in modern Shanghai, the shipping ports are one of the largest and most active in the entire world. Because of this industry and lack of government regulations, Shanghai has began to experience, or over the past 4 or 5 decades, began to experience a serious water problem. And we're not talking about the unpotable water, but for human consumption. So Shanghai water sources have been polluted to the point that 90% of them are considered unsuitable for human consumption. And of that 90%, 30% of that is actually considered unusable for industrial use. It is so polluted by chemicals and industrial discharge that it is it's not even reusable for industrial use. And the people, the dense population, is having a hard time getting clean access to water. And because of this lack of clean access to water, disease and famine have become widespread in the region, and to the point that some of the smaller towns that are located around these textile and chemical plants have actually began to be dubbed cancer villages. And large amounts of disease, famine, crop failure have all been problems associated with the poor water quality. So my social enterprise solution is the Global Water Reclamation Initiative, and our mission statement is: the Global Water Reclamation Initiative is founded on the belief that lack of access to safe drinking water is the leading cause of disease, hunger, poverty in both developing nations and industrialized nations. It is our determination to remedy the root cause of polluted water sources in addition to providing localized solutions to environmental degradation. We will promote the well-being of our planet as an instrument of solidarity among family, community, nations, and humanity. Now, when looking at the social enterprise solution, the root causes of the water problems in the Shanghai region begin with the lack of government controls on corporate pollution. As simple as that. The lack of government controls on corporate pollution are the absolute root cause, yet the hardest to tackle. The lack of individual effort to control pollution. And it should be understandable when a person is watching a company dump thousands of gallons of uncontrolled chemicals into their water supply. They have a hard time not wanting to just throw their trash and pollutants in there too. So lack of personal knowledge on the effects of polluted waterways, lack of corporate responsibility on environmental degradation, lack of access to water reclamation technology for personal use, and lack of access to water reclamation technology for industrial use, and lack of shelter from disease-causing chemical waste. These are some of the major problems that the Shanghai area are experiencing. Our desired outcome as a social enterprise is to improve the drinking water for the entire population, clean waterways for industrial and recreational use, decrease levels of disease, poverty, starvation, increase levels of social responsibility and environmental education, increase levels of social responsible business practices, increase government regulations and environmental pollution, increased government involvement in environmental reclamation efforts. The key activities of our corporation are going to be a global distributor of personal, household, and industrial water filtration systems, partnering with nonprofit environmental organizations to advance the reclamation of clean water sources. So our intention is not to actually build the devices, but to partner with the manufacturers and work on a system to distribute and give access to the poor and affected communities of this environmental degradation. With that, we hope to be a for-profit entity who will actually sell the units at a reasonable price, possibly subsidized, and utilize the profits to advance environmental regulations in the future. Beginning at the beginning of the project, some of our key activities are going to be starting in the individual household. Utilize the distribution and sale of household carbon water filters as a means to build capital. So we would use individual, household, and industrial water filtration systems as our means to build capital. We would do that by launching heavy advertising campaigns, using rhetoric and propaganda to create a sense of urgency, to create public interest, selling home filters at a low price, net profit on units distributed in affected communities. We would verify our effectiveness by the number of units sold and profitability, as well as the amount of money that we are able to distribute to nonprofit organizations in an attempt to advance the environmental projects. Moving on into the project, utilizing the community and mobilizing the community to press government into action would be a next step. Communities establishing social awareness programs to be run in educational environments, elementary through post-secondary, community organizations, industrial organization partnerships, and governmental organizational partnerships. Some of the key cultural indicators that can become a problem are one of the most outstanding would be the communist regime and their control over entry into new markets, as well as their willingness to squash social enterprises that go against their community organization and party plans. So that is going to be the hardest thing to get through. So establishing a wellness program that deals with for-profit paying taxes to the party itself and working within their system would be the first process within the enterprise.